Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Tremaine Wright, the Chair of the Cannabis Control Board, and recognizing that we have all board members present and participating remotely, I'm pleased to call to order the seventh meeting of the Cannabis Control Board and to welcome all of you who are participating via real-time live stream. This meeting will be recorded and the recording and transcript will be available to the public on the Office of Cannabis Management's website, cannabis.ny.gov. Information on Cannabis Control Board meetings is available on a designated section of the OCM website. Today's agenda is a little lengthy and includes several items that we're excited to tackle. The agenda is as follows. Welcome brief remarks. Then we'll have a review and approval of the meeting minutes from the Cannabis Control Board meeting held on February 17th. The board will then proceed into executive session to discuss proposed pending and or current litigation matters, as well as a training on statutory interpretation and drafting. Then we will consider the proposed conditional adult use retail dispensary regulations, then consideration of opening the application window and approval of the application for adult use conditional cultivator licenses. Thereafter, we will hear one matter of administrative procedure to consider employee disclosure of notary public as required by the cannabis law, followed by an update from board member McDaniel on the Social Equity Cannabis Investment Fund, and finally, a report from the Office of Cannabis Management's Executive Director, Chris Alexander, and then we will adjourn. Right, let's get started with some opening remarks. And first, I've spoken to this many times. We continue to, and it's consistently a priority for us here at the OCM. We are continuing to recruit top talent to grow the Office of Cannabis Management. We've been adding staff to our teams, growing our expertise, and building our capacity here at the office. So job postings continue to be added to our website on a rolling basis. So please continue to monitor the website for opportunities. Next, at the February 17th meeting of the Cannabis Control Board, we provided an update and a preview of our statewide community engagement sessions that were held by the office and the board. These were our cannabis conversations. We've completed 11 conversations. We hit 10 regions, and we were able to hold one in Spanish language. We've reached over 5,600 New Yorkers. We answered hundreds of questions from community members directly, and we hope that we've hit your questions. But if you were unable to attend any of our meetings, we ask you to please note that the recordings are available in English and in Spanish on our website. This was just our first statewide outreach. We will continue to engage with community members and stakeholders across the state. So we look forward to continuing to engage with the community as we continue to build this industry together. Lastly, today's board meeting is a momentous one, and I'm excited about what these items on our agenda today. We've spoken with you all about how we're trying to streamline the timing of opening our adult use cannabis dispensaries in the state. And today's discussion will include exactly that. A plan to jumpstart cannabis cultivation and lay the groundwork for future adult use dispensaries. Additionally, this plan will tie our goal and mandate to provide social and economic equity applicants with the resources they need to be successful. The resources have not always received in other states, but we're stepping forward, and this is the opportunity for New York to lead. So without further ado, let's dive into our first order of business. The first is the review and approval of our meeting minutes from the February 17th Cannabis Control Board meeting. However, before we get much further, I'm going to make a couple of brief remarks regarding open meetings law. And as I stated every meeting, we are subject to the open meetings law, which is intended to ensure the greatest levels of transparency and public participation in the affairs of government. Due to the ongoing pandemic, we have requested that members of the public join us via video conference, which we will continue to offer to keep the members as well as the public of this body, and the members of the body and the public safe. Now, I will read a brief statement into the record. Pursuant to Chapter 1 of the laws of 2022, enacted on January 14th of 2022, board members may continue to fully participate in meetings via video conference from locations that are not open to the public, provided that the public has the ability to view or listen to such proceedings, and the meetings are recorded and later transcribed. The public was provided with information on how to access this meeting within the public meeting notice distributed to members of the press and posted on the OCM website. A recording of this meeting, together with the transcript, will also be available on the OCM website. Previous recordings, meeting minutes, and transcripts are archived on our website as well. And please note there's a designated tab on the website which reads Board Meetings. That provides access to all of this information. May I please have a motion to approve the February 17th, 2022 board meeting minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Jen. May I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Ruben. Is there any discussion by any board member? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion has been approved. The February 17, 2022 board meeting minute carries. Concerning the next order of business, may I please hear from the Office of General Counsel? Rick or Elizabeth?
I think first Elizabeth will present some information about the litigation, and I'll step out while she does that, and then I'll come back in.
We have to go.
We have to
to
take
executive session.
You know, that's why he's saying it, because we're getting ready to make the motion, go into exec. He just wanted to tell them what they were talking about, so.
Okay. So I'll step out now, but I'll come back when you're done, Elizabeth.
Okay. So may I please have a motion to consider and approve an executive session to discuss proposed pending and current litigation, as
So
well
moved.
as a training. So moved. May I have a second?
I'll second.
And it's seconded. Any discussion or comment by any board members? Okay, I'll call for a vote. Ms. Metzger,
Aye.
Ms. Garcia,
Aye.
Mr. McDaniel,
Aye.
Mr. Perry,
Aye.
and I. So the motion to approve has been to discuss the proposed pending and current litigation as well as training carries. To my fellow board members, we'll now move into the executive session. Everyone else, the video screen will now have a hold screen until we return to continue the remaining items on the agenda. Welcome back. The executive session has concluded and we've received an update on litigation and training matters. Now we'll move on to our next order of business. May I please have a motion to consider and approve resolution number 2022-04, a resolution directing the Office of Cannabis Management to file certain proposed conditional adult use retail dispensary regulations.
I'll be happy to make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. May I have a second?
I'll be happy to second.
Thank you, Ms. Metzger. Mr. Alexander, could you please provide an overview of the regulations?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd actually like to invite Axel Burnaby to provide this update to the board. Axel is the Senior Policy Director and Chief of Staff to the office. And for the last 6 years, he's helped oversee and lead the state's medical cannabis and cannabinoid hemp programs. He led the team that spearheaded legalization of recreational cannabis in New York and had helped to draft and build consensus around the MRTA, so I'm happy to have him here on our team. Axel, please present the regs.
Thank you, Chris. It's a real honor to be here today to do this. Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity and board members to present here today. We are extraordinarily proud as an office to be presenting to you a way forward on licensing, in particular with a social equity emphasis. We'd like to note that we are just under the 1-year anniversary of the MRTA, so I believe all of us collectively have made up some time for the delays early on, and we're very proud of that fact. We're also very proud to be proposing a framework for licensing, which includes a supply chain that starts with farmers in New York and ends with social equity and justice-involved individuals owning dispensaries in the state right out of the gate. Herb Barbeau will be speaking to opening the application for the farming side, but what I'd like to propose to the board today is on the dispensary front, the dispensaries and retailers that would be selling the product that we would have grown by New York farmers. And so the proposal we have in terms of regulations is to identify a group of potential applicants and some support that we would be providing those applicants in a way to get them open really quickly. So a quick summary of the proposed regulations is essentially we have defined a group of applicants. We've done so with a two-step process for your review. The first would be to set a minimum eligibility criteria for people to be able to apply. And once those minimum eligibility criteria have been met, there would be some scoring rubrics which would differentiate between those eligible applicants in order to pick winners. And the eligibility criteria are fairly straightforward. It's justice-involved individuals, either themselves justice-involved or someone in their family is justice-involved, and that they are owners of a small business or a business. And those two criteria would allow you to then apply. Once you've applied under the regulations, you would be scored according to 3 criteria. The first would be whether you yourself was arrested or convicted of a marijuana-related offense, or whether it was someone in your family. That would score differently. And then you would also be asked to provide your permanent address at the time of the arrest or conviction, and that would be compared to other local communities on the basis of arrest record data and other prohibition and overcriminalizations of certain communities and household income. So we would be looking for individuals that come from communities that have been impacted, frankly. That is the mission of the MRTA, and we know that that is what you're looking for, so we'd like to present you with an option there. And finally, in order to make sure that the program is as successful as possible for this group of dispensaries, we'd like to look at the way that these individuals have run their business and make sure that we look for successful businesses that have an opportunity to really grow and create opportunities. And so there'll be criteria that we'll be proposing to you in an application after the public comment on these regulations, which would identify criteria to evaluate those businesses. But we would ask in these regulations that you provide us with the ability to do so. And the last thing I'd like to just add is, and I think Chris will be speaking to this, there are provisions in the regulations that would provide support to these dispensaries in the form of either loans or help with the retail functions. And again, this is designed to get them up and running as quickly as possible, but it would also provide certain restrictions with respect to this license. The reason it's called a conditional dispensary license is that it has a 4-year term, And during those 4 years, the individual that we've been speaking about would be required to keep a majority of ownership and control over that entity and not be able to sell it for those 4 years, with the idea that they would build the kind of wealth that hopefully would result in the sort of intergenerational wealth that I think, again, folks are looking to achieve. So we hope that you find these satisfactory, and we're very excited to present these to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any discussion, question, or comments by the board members? Ms. Metzger.
I'd just like to underscore how significant these proposed regulations are. And they really, this is really the spirit of the MRTA that is being implemented, or hopefully will be passed and implemented. And combined with the Social Equity Fund, I mean, this has been such a huge barrier in other states to equity applicants to moving forward, and I'm just really thrilled to see this happening, and just want to thank everyone for their work on this.
Amen.
Any other comments, questions? Well, I'm just going to add that I'm really happy that we have gotten to this point and that we have been able to come together and build what I think will be a model, or hopefully a model for others to look at and see how it might be possible to bring to fruition the goals of equity in the program, in the cannabis program. I think that this is a huge lift, and I do want to say thank you to everyone that's been involved in it. We know and understand it takes a lot of work to come up with this and to put all of the parts in place to actually execute it. This has been a very quick, I'm going to say, 8 months for us together, and for us to be at the place where we are ready to begin examining and offering an opportunity to the public. The people who were at the center of the conversation is really important, so thank you. And if there are no other questions, I will call for a vote. Oh, yes, I'll call for a vote. Ms. Metzger?
Aye.
Ms. Garcia?
Aye.
Mr. McDaniel?
Aye.
Mr. Perry?
Aye.
And I vote, and I approve. The affirmative as well. The motion to approve resolution number 2022, directing the Office of Cannabis Management to file certain proposed conditional adult use retail dispensary regulations carries. For our next order of business, we will hear from the Office on a legislative overview of the conditional adult use cultivator license. Mr. Alexander.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to invite Herb Barbeau, our Director of Operations, to provide this update.
Thank you, Chris, Madam Chair. And on behalf of the board at OCM, we've talked about MRTA being, almost a year anniversary, but in a very real sense, a lot of the staff really began 12/1. I mean, that's really when the staff started coming together, and we've been increasing every month since. So I want to thank the board for that opportunity. But the staff has been working double time to get here today with these two resolutions. It is just an incredible feat. So I personally want to thank the staff. We've been asking so much of in the last 4 months. So get to the script. So again, on February 22nd, Governor Hochul signed a law creating a new adult use conditional cannabis cultivator license. The law positions eligible New York State hemp farmers to be the first to grow cannabis for the New York cannabis adult use market. The law also includes several eligibility requirements that applicants must meet to participate. And it's very important. We want them to be very careful. One of the things that we've done here is the application fee is non-refundable, so applicants should be sure that they meet these qualifications before they apply. So to be eligible, applicants must have been authorized to grow hemp under the Department of Agriculture and Markets Industrial Hemp Research Pilot Program, specifically for CBD hemp and not for grain or fiber. Applicants also must have grown and harvested CBD hemp for 2 of the past 4 years, so that's between 2018 and 2021, and be able to provide the office with proof documenting such activities. And we'll be liberal in the proof, but there must be proof of that activity. Additionally, applicants must hold at least a 51% or more ownership in the entity that held the industrial hemp grower authorization from the Department of Agriculture and Markets. In addition to meeting program criteria and maintaining compliance with the program rules and regulations, the law also includes 3 additional requirements, which I should highlight at this point. The first is that applicants must practice safe, sustainable, and environmentally friendly cultivation practices. The office will soon issue guidance outlining the initial requirements to meet these environmental standards. Second, applicants must participate in the social equity mentorship program. Such mentoring program will be used to train individuals interested in becoming licensed cultivators. Lastly, the law also requires that licensees, within 6 months of being licensed, enter into a labor peace agreement with a bona fide labor organization to represent the applicant's employees. Finally, I'd like to provide a brief explanation of how a qualifying hemp farmer will begin the process of applying for the adult use conditional cultivator license. First, applicants must log in if they already have an existing account or create a New York Business Express business profile. Next, applicants will upload information pertaining to their previous authorization to grow hemp under the Department of Ag and Markets program. Lastly, applicants must attest to the requirements of the license, including adherence to the statutory requirements discussed previously, such as participation in the social equity mentorship program and maintaining a labor peace agreement. Finally, the license application must include the submission, again, of a non-refundable $2,000 license and application fee.
Thank you, Herb. Madam Chair, the office is proposing the following application window to the board for the conditional adult use cultivator license. That will be March 15th, 2022 until June 30th, 2022.
Thank you. May I please have a motion to consider and approve resolution number 2022-05, resolution approving an application form for the conditional adult use cultivator license and ordering that a new application period for a conditional adult use cultivator license open on March 15th, 2022 and close on June 30th, 2022.
I'd like to make that motion.
Ms. Metzger, may I have a second?
Second.
Mr. McDaniel, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
As usual, I have comments.
Ms. Metzger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of comments about the conditional license. And Herb and staff, I want to reiterate, thank you for all the work you've done on this. I'm thrilled we're taking this step today. First, it aligns our regulatory process with the natural growing season, making it possible to grow cannabis, adult use cannabis outdoors in the sunlight and, get products to the first dispensaries when they open. From a climate perspective, I know I always talk about this, but it's great too because it's very low impact and we're enabling hemp farmers opportunities to grow. But I also just want to make sure we're providing opportunities to growers that meet the social and economic equity criteria of the MRTA. And we have the mentorship, you mentioned the mentorship program, Herb. I recognize that we have to work within the bounds of the law that was just passed. But I would really like us to explore how we can enable equity growers in the mentorship program to grow adult use cannabis on their own land, if that's possible. Potentially for sale through partnership with hemp growers that are licensed under the program. This is just one idea, but whatever opportunities we can explore to really widen those opportunities for equity applicants and equity participants in the mentorship program and really build that program out.
Thank you. Are there additional, Mr. McDaniel?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, again, thank you, Herb, and your team, because you've done a great job on this. We should recognize this publicly, this is a small segment of the supply we will need in New York.
Right.
So it's not like this is going ahead of people, but I think as Ms. Metzger said, it does allow us to get through the growing season, which is important. I think we've always committed, and your board and staff have done a great job of executing on making sure social equity applicants are considered, and are considered here as well. I just wanted to remind us all, this is the first of several grow licenses that will be needed, and the first of a lot of grow opportunities we needed to supply the market for adult use recreational cannabis. So this is a great first step, great outline of kind of where we'll be going in the future. But I want to just remind us all this is the first step of many steps to supply this market properly.
Yes, thank you for amplifying that. I think that we all need a reminder sometimes that this is just the beginning. We're very excited about the beginning, but it is just the beginning for us. Are there any additional comments? Okay. Hearing none, I will call for the vote. Ms. Metzger?
Aye.
Ms. Garcia?
Aye.
Mr. McDaniel?
Aye.
Mr. Perry?
Aye.
Tremaine? Aye. I'm an affirmative as well. The motion to approve resolution number 2022-05, resolution approving an application form for the conditional adult use cultivator license and ordering that a new application period for a conditional adult use cultivator license open on March 15th, 2022 and close on June 30th, 2022 carries.
And also deserves some,
Yes, thank you so much. And now we'll consider a resolution to allow Cannabis Control Board members and OCM employees to serve as notary publics. May I please have a motion to consider and approve resolution number 2022-06, resolution to permit Office of Cannabis Management employees to hold the office of notary public.
So moved.
So we have a move and a second. Thank you very much. Ms. Alexander, could you provide us with a little background regarding the need for this resolution?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pursuant to Section 7 of the Cannabis Law, an employee of the OCM must request permission from the board to hold any public office, including notary public.
So thank you. And is there any discussion, question, or comment by any board member? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Metzger?
Aye.
Ms. Garcia?
Aye.
Mr. McDaniel?
Aye.
Mr. Perry?
Aye.
And Tremaine, aye. The motion to approve Resolution 20-22-06, resolution to permit Office of Cannabis Management employees to hold the office of notary public carries. And now the next order of business. During the last Cannabis Control Board meeting on February 17th, Mr. McDaniel, Board Member McDaniel, presented an overview of the $200 million public-private fund that will provide funding to certain eligible applicants from communities impacted by disproportionate policing during the decades-long cannabis prohibition. And now I'd like to invite Mr. McDaniel, please provide an update on the fund.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's important for us all to remember that we talk about social equity a lot. Equity and equality are two different terms, and sometimes they get confused. But it's great that the legislature and the governor understand that without equity, you can't start from an equal place. And one of the places where our social equity candidates have really struggled is access to capital. And this fund is really designed to address a portion of that program. Also, like I said about the licenses for grow, this is the first of other programs we're doing. It's not the only way we're going to spend our money. And we want to make sure we leverage the money of the Office of Cannabis Management with private investment. So this fund does all of those things. So we've been working very diligently over the past couple of months on organizing this program, work with the legislature and the governor to make sure that everything fits what we need and get legislative approval for this over the next couple of weeks. So we're working very hard with them. We also have been looking at just programmatically how we'll identify sites, how we'll assist our candidates in, our winning candidates, in getting those facilities open. DASNY will do some of that work with partners. And so we've been really kind of framing up how this is all going to work while we work with the legislature and others to get this program finalized. We're very excited about the work and the opportunity. It also has been very heartening to spend some time looking at the state to see we have a lot of opportunity for locations around the state. But also this program will make sure that as we roll out the first adult use cannabis sites, that they will be all over the state. And that I think is important. Also with the initial program we passed for regulation-wise, this will help us get all of our dates right, right? So we have applications in for licensees to run the places, we're gonna get some supply in place. We also make sure the facilities are up and running when it's time, and this does that. So we issued an RFI, request for information, to qualified investment managers to assist us in managing this fund. Those requests are due on March the 16th. That will give us some additional information about what the market thinks we should do from a structuring perspective. This is not an RFP. We will have a request for proposal, assuming the legislation passes, to actually put this fund in place, to then hire a general partner and fund manager. This RFI is an important component. So we're working very hard at this. The Office of Cannabis Management has been a partner with DASNY and others, outside consultants, so that when the legislation passes and we're ready to go, we will make sure that our timing meets up with all the good work the office has done on supply and on making sure we have applicants who are ready to run these dispensaries. So very excited about it. We're making great progress, and more to come.
Thank you. That is, I'm going to say, that's an excellent update. I'm going to say that's what everybody wants to hear. That money will be available soon, and that's really the crux of the problem in most of our small businesses across the board. So thank you very much. And now we're going to switch gears a little bit, and I would like to ask Chris to please give us your executive update.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to take a little bit of moment to echo the excitement in this room for those who are tuning in. And I want to thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank you all, members of the board, for what you've done today. This was a groundbreaking moment, soon to be a literal groundbreaking moment as we get these dispensaries ready. But we have really set New York's cannabis industry up for success with the actions that have been taken by the board. I want to also thank Governor Hochul and the legislature for providing our office and our board with the tools needed to do what we are doing, to do what has not yet been done, which is being the first state to set up our adult use market using an existing farmer population to supply that market using sustainable practices and outdoor cannabis largely. So we're jump-starting the cannabis industry today and its investment into the communities that have been most impacted by the criminalization of cannabis prohibition with the first adult use sales, and we're excited to say that those sales should all continue to go right, can be executed before the end of 2022. I want to highlight that we're doing this and taking in the lessons that we've learned from other states, trying to apply them. We've seen how access to capital and real estate have been significant barriers to getting equity entrepreneurs into the space, and so we're doing the work now to remove those barriers and provide real meaningful support. Later today, the governor will be announcing the Seeding Opportunity Initiative, which tackles these barriers head on, and it's composed of 3 programs, 2 of which we've acted on today, and 1 of which we got an update on. The Farmers First program, the Equity Owners League program, and the New York Social Equity Cannabis Investment Program. The hemp farmers in the Farmers First program will soon be able to grow the first adult use cannabis in New York, and they'll be supplying the flower for the product, the flower products that will line the shelves of the dispensaries owned by the equity entrepreneurs that we license moving forward. Participants in the Equity Owners League program are supported by the Cannabis Investment Fund that Board Member McDaniel has highlighted. This program Apologies for those technical difficulties. But as I was saying, we're doing this by taking the lessons that we've learned from other states and applying them. We've seen how access to capital and real estate, along with market timing, have become significant barriers for entrepreneurs to enter the space, and we're working every day to address those and provide real opportunity for entrepreneurs in the state of New York. Today, the governor will be announcing the Seeding Opportunity Initiative, which tackles these barriers head on and is composed of 3 key programs. The first, the Farmers First program, we've just taken action on to open the Conditional Cultivator application window. The second, the Equity Owners Lead program, we've just taken action on to form the first regulations for that program for public comment. And the last, the Social Equity Cannabis Investment Program that was just updated, provided an update for by Board Member McDaniel. The hemp farmers in the Farmers First program will soon be able to grow the first adult use cannabis in New York, and they will be supplying the flower for the product that will line the shelves of dispensaries owned by equity entrepreneurs participating in the Equity Owners Lead program. Those participants will be supported by real investments. As Board Member McDaniel has explained, this program is going to provide resources to renovate retail dispensary locations across the state in high traffic prime commercial areas. These locations will be renovated and outfitted by Dazzling and its partners, and which will include NWE firms, and provided as turnkey or turnkey ready facilities to the licensees in the Equity Owners Lead program. As a reminder, this is just the start of our efforts to put equity first as we open the adult use market here in New York. Regulations for the broader program will be coming, I think I previously stated, in May. And as we develop this full slate of adult use regulations, we're also working on developing opportunities for accessing capital, incubating businesses, and technical support for the entire industry. So there's a lot more to come, but today we've made a huge advancement in our efforts to prioritize New York's small and distressed farmers, our equity entrepreneurs, and ultimately our goal to generate the resources that will drive the investments into communities that have been most impacted by overcriminalization. Before we move on, I wanted to provide a quick update on the medical program. With more staff coming on board, we're dedicating additional resources to speed up the turnaround on patient registration and strengthen our support for the new patient certification and registration system we launched earlier this year. We know it's important to patients that they get access to their medication, and I want to assure them we're always working to make that a priority. Additionally, as it relates to the assessment of public comments on the medical home cultivation regulations, please note that the office continues to work through the substantive comments provided and will share more information soon. With that, I'll hand it back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Now that the Cannabis Control Board has approved the opening of the adult use cultivator license application period, I wanted to notify everyone that we will be holding a webinar in the coming days for those interested applicants to learn more about the eligibility standards, the application process, and forthcoming guidance. This will be recorded and posted on our office's website. Thank you again, Chris. That was really informative and exciting for all of New York. And so now I would like to put a note on our next board meeting. Please note that the time, location, and live stream link will be shared on cannabis.ny.gov in advance of the meeting, and a recording of today's meeting minutes, and a transcription will also be posted. That concludes today's public agenda. May I please have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Second. So moved and seconded. I would like to say, are there any questions or comments from the board before? Hearing none, I call for the vote. Ms. Metzger?
Aye.
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 Daniel, Ms. Garcia? Mr. Perry?
Aye.
And I'm perfect. So the motion to adjourn carries. And so I just want to say thank you again to everyone for your patience during our executive session, and for your patience with us also during our technical difficulties. We're very excited about the information that we were able to share today, and for concluding today's meeting. So we will now adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. Before I take questions, I want to take a few moments to recognize and to discuss with you the action that was taken by the board today and what we've achieved as a state, as an office, and as a team. We've been trying to build a market that lives up to the promise of the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act, that delivers on social equity, justice, and inclusion. Today, the governor is announcing the Seeding Opportunity Initiative, and we are thankful for her and the legislature's support in launching New York's adult use cannabis market. Through the initiative, we are prioritizing equity entrepreneurs and putting our farmers first. And we are building a stable market that will create the necessary resources to allow us to reinvest in the communities that have been most impacted by cannabis prohibition. Last year, when the legislature passed the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act, it set a goal of delivering 50% of all licenses in the adult use market to equity entrepreneurs. The law provided tools in its market structure to create multiple entry points into the market, to encourage small business, and to prevent market consolidation. When you look at other states and how they've established and built out their markets, they've always prioritized moving quickly. As we've come in to build this market here in New York, we acknowledge the need to move quickly, but also the need to do it right. And we understand that if we want a different outcome for our equity entrepreneurs in this state, that we have to take a different approach. That's what it means to learn from the lessons that others have already learned. I'm thankful to the support of Governor Hochul and the action taken by the board today, and thankful to them, we are now breaking the mold. We are taking the harder path, and it's one that no state has done before. We are putting our farmers and those who have been justice involved at the front of the line and at the forefront of this industry. Instead of opening our market with the same existing operators who are dominating the national space, we've instead decided to put those who have been most impacted at the center of what we are building here. The Seeding Opportunity Initiative is composed of 3 programs. The Farmers First program, the Equity Owners Lead program, and the proposed New York Social Equity Cannabis Investment Program. All 3 were discussed at today's board meeting, and 2 of those programs were advanced. The board today approved the adult use conditional cultivator license application and opened the application window so that farmers that make up the backbone of this industry will be able to get started this season growing cannabis that will be supplying the adult use market this year. The board also directed OCM to file for public comment the regulations for the conditional adult use retail dispensary license. Lastly, Board Member McDaniel provided an update to the board on the New York Social Equity Cannabis Investment Program. And as he noted, that program, which was proposed by the governor in her executive budget, remains under discussion with the legislature, but we remain optimistic. The Seeding Opportunity Initiative is just the start of our efforts to put equity first as we open this market. As we develop the full slate of adult use regulations, we are also working on developing opportunities for accessing capital, incubating businesses, and providing technical support across the entire industry. So there's a lot more to come, and this is just one initiative, but it's an important one, and it establishes a national model. I could not be prouder of the work that's been done by our team here at OCM, and again, thankful to those who have led the way on this issue for so many years. We've made a huge advancement in our efforts with this initiative. We're prioritizing those who've been most impacted and those who will become the backbone of this market moving forward. And so with that, I will open for questions.
Reporters, please put up your hands if you'd like to ask a question. We will start with Morgan McKay. Okay. Oops. Trying.
Quick question for you. If someone has a marijuana conviction and they also been convicted of, let's say, selling heroin or meth or something like that, are they eligible to apply for one of these recreational licenses or retail licenses?
Thank you for the question, Morgan. So the evaluation criteria provided in the regulations that are being proposed today does prioritize individuals who have been convicted of marijuana-related offenses. Those other offenses, however, can result in the exclusion of an individual from moving forward in this program and making them eligible for licensure. As you'll note in the regulations, there remains good conduct standard that will allow for the office to determine eligible applicants that can move forward, and several other provisions across the cannabis law, formerly the MRTA, that allow for the exclusion of individuals who otherwise are unfit to lead in this marketplace.
Thank you. Now hear from Kesha Clucky.
You may be on mute.
Just curious, so in order to get one of these licenses, you would have to be someone who either has the prior conviction or is a family member or dependent of someone but they also must be a business owner. Is that correct? And how many people do you think would fall under that category?
That is correct. And we've done the analysis, and we think there's a significant population of New Yorkers, one, who've been impacted by the disproportionate enforcement of cannabis prohibition. To my last counts, the state has arrested over almost 1 million people over the last 20 years for cannabis offenses. And a lot of those individuals have then gone on to open and operate successful businesses, small businesses that will become, as I said earlier, the backbone of this market. So we're confident that there are a lot of folks that fit in that criteria.
Thank you. Next question is from Bobby Kuza. We're just trying to unmute you, Bobby. 1 second, bear with us. There we go. Bobby, are you there?
You guys hear me?
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Sorry, I'm on my phone and my computer. So talk about what happens going forward. I mean, first of all, the application process hasn't actually opened for these initial licenses, right? So, and then after this batch, there is a whole nother process for the rest of the licenses, right? Like what percentage of the overall universe of licenses does this represent?
That's a great question. And you're spot on. This application period for the application discussed in the regulations provided today has not opened yet. These regulations are going out for public comment. It should be 60 days of public comment, at which point the office will analyze and respond to and assess the comments that have been made, suggestions from the public and other interest groups to ensure that we're moving forward on solid footing. The general reg packages we've been referring to it will come out in May, and the application window tied to those other license types and other retail licenses as well will come out after, again, those regulations go through a public comment period and the office has a chance to respond to those comments. So we're anticipating end of year for that application window, and we're anticipating July or so for the application tied to these conditional retail licenses. And I want to emphasize again, this is a small segment of the potential dispensary licenses, and even a smaller segment of the total licenses that will be provided in the adult use program. But we found it prudent to get this market off the ground as soon as possible, and to rely on existing or individuals who have both been impacted, but also have the experience and the tenacity of owning and operating businesses to be the foundation of our market moving forward. Backing them grew. We will go to Brad Racino. Brad, your microphone should be.
There we go. Okay, now I'm in. Hi, Chris. How are you?
How you doing? Apologies, everybody, for this. We've had some difficulties at our board meeting, at the press conference. The office is a little outdated. We're working on it.
Not a problem. Chris, I was hoping, could you talk a little bit about the nonprofit element of these draft regs? Like, is there any concern about federal regulations over nonprofits conflicting with what's being proposed in New York? Like, as you know, the IRS certifies nonprofits. So just curious about that. Thanks.
No, we fully appreciate and recognize the consequences of federal prohibition as it, restricts our ability to operate fully. We're thankful that we have leaders in our state who are working on ending prohibition on the federal level. But the intent there was to capture a group of folks who are also doing relevant community work, trying to target those communities that have been impacted by a lot of different things and have been left behind in many ways. But also still with the similar requirement that those folks are engaged in some social enterprise. And so that's the language that's included there to capture where folks are doing community-based work, but have some social enterprise that is generating revenue to support that effort. So we just want to make sure we capture a wide enough tent to capture those who are operating nonprofits as well.
All right, thank you. Then we will next hear from Kevin Dugan. Go ahead, Kevin.
Clarification first. For sales to be able to start at the end of the year, will the application window open sooner than that? Like, could it be as soon as after that 60-day comment period wraps up?
It could. And in the case that, we have limited public comment, there's limited suggestions to pivot the regulations and the approach that we've taken for this particular license type, we should be able to open it a little bit sooner. But we understand that the public is going to be very interested in engaging on this issue as well as other reg packages that we put out. And so we are reserving that space, and we want to provide clarity to the public on when to get ready, when to provide and to secure their application materials. So we're trying to give clarity while also understanding that, should there be a longer engagement, it may take a little bit more time. But we're optimistic that we can get this done and get some stores open by the end of this calendar year.
All right, thank you. We'll next hear from Darla Miles.
Darla Miles from WABC TV. We appreciate your time. Just a few things. In terms of the requirement for previous cannabis convictions, we know 7 other states also have that as part of their criteria. Can you clarify for those who may be preoccupied with the word conviction, what that means, what the scope of convictions, are they precluded because of a felony conviction? So kind of, if you can explain to us what convictions qualify and what convictions may not qualify. Also, just a broader scope of what, again, let's not just focusing on the cannabis conviction, the previous conviction, but obviously there are other metrics that need to be met in order to achieve this license. Thirdly, do we have a number, 100 licenses of how many, is there a cap? Is there going to be a cap in the city of New York? So again, we want to get a better sense of what percentage of these licenses we're talking about. And fourthly, sorry, just looking at some of the headlines that have come out today, drug dealers are getting the first licenses. I mean, kind of again, paint a portrait of the target client that we're just talking about. Are we talking about El Chapo? Because that's kind of been the characterization, today. So kind of characterize again who we're looking at, what kind of convictions qualify and disqualify, and what percentage of licenses these are. Thank you so much for.
Yeah, I want to tackle. Thank you for that. I want to tackle the back end of that first. and clarify to folks, for the eligibility criteria for this particular license type, it is not just an individual that has had a marijuana-related conviction or cannabis-related conviction. It's also that they're owning and operating a small business. These are small business owners. These are individuals who come from certain communities, have been impacted. In the case of folks coming from the city, it may have been the case that they were thrown up against the wall and asked to empty their pockets and produced a small amount of marijuana and were saddled with a misdemeanor conviction that has been with them up until 2021 when we cleared and expunged those records, or 2019 when we expunged that first batch of those records. And then they went on to operate successfully small businesses. That's who's going to be making up this first tranche of licensees, the small business owners. That's who we're relying on to be the backbone of this market. And I keep saying that because it's so fundamentally true to what we're trying to do here. Now, as I spoke to the cannabis-related offenses or marijuana-related offenses, we have captured all pre-ly associated cannabis or marijuana-related offenses that were included in the penal law, as well as marijuana offenses that were not as distinguished, but were also in the penal law pre-1977. And so in going through the regulations that have been proposed, you'll see that definition captures previous offenses under Article 221 or Section 221 of the penal law, which were the marijuana offenses prior to the passage of the MRTA, as well as convictions that were reached prior to 1977 when there was a singular drug offense where marijuana would be distinguished. Sorry for getting into the weeds there, but that's the type. Those are the convictions that are captured by that language of marijuana-related conviction. And I would add too that this also captures the violation level offenses. So over the last 20 years, I gave the number of almost 1 million arrests for marijuana offenses. Almost 90% of that were lowest level activity, and that's the individual getting arrested for a single joint, a small baggie, and again, having that same criminal consequence that would prohibit their access to federal funding for their education, that would force them to vacate their public housing should they live there, and would, of course, be a challenge to them as they sought employment following that conviction. So it's capturing all of those individuals. But again, I want to center this because it's so important that we're starting our industry here with existing small business owners who we believe can translate those skills to building out New York's cannabis industry.
All right. Next, we will hear from Kyle Yeager. Kyle, your line should be open.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, yes, my name is Kyle Yeager. I'm with Marijuana Moment. I just wonder how you would respond to possible criticism from existing businesses to this proposal. I think there's, an understanding that New York wants to take a bold and novel step toward ensuring equity in a way that other states haven't approached it. But for those that have already invested in the medical program, what would you say to their desire to open the adult use market as soon as possible and not be second in line?
Yeah, the existing medical operators will absolutely be able to participate. But they knew and they supported the cannabis law, the Marijuana Regulation Taxation Act, and the language included in the law that guides our actions today was that individuals who've been most impacted will be given priority as we build this adult use market. So I think there's definitely an avenue and a pathway forward for those existing operators. Those are folks who have been supplying the patients of the state of New York for some years, and they will be able to participate. But equity will lead, and those who've been most impacted will go first.
Next, we will hear from Sam Reisman. Sam, you should be good to go.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. Sam Reisman from Law 360. I'm curious, is there any language in these rules that bars or at least give some guidance on when and how they can be these licenses can be transferred or sold? And is there any language that sort of operates as a de facto state residency requirement to make sure these go to New Yorkers? And if so, how is that written in such a way as to survive a legal challenge, such as we've seen in other states?
Yeah. No, there is no residency requirement in the cannabis law or in these regulations as they're provided, but there is a requirement as we're working to repair the harms that were done to individuals who either lived in or occupied at some point in time the state of New York, that they had to have suffered that harm or had that conviction in New York State. And so, you know, that connection to the state is also extended to the evaluation of the businesses, that the business should be active in the state of New York, whether it be their primary place of business, the location of their incorporation. But, you know, those approaches are intended to ensure we're being specific to the harm that we're trying to repair, and that's harm that's been done in the state of New York. And I would also add there is one restriction on the transfer of ownership. In the MRTA currently, there's a restriction for social equity applicants that they're unable to transfer their license except to another social equity applicant within their first 3 years of licensure without board approval. This group, as you know, they will be provided a location that's built out or ready to be built out. There's a 4-year time frame where they're restricted from said transfer, which is close to consistent with what we have in place in the cannabis law, and it's for the same purpose, to ensure that we're stabilizing and building the market out and we're meeting our equity goals.
All right. Well, next here from Sean Keegan. All right, Sean, you should be good to
Cannabis
go.
Insider. I was just wondering on the conditional licenses for farmers. Do you have any idea or any projections on how much supply people who get these licenses will provide to the market coming out of the gate?
We do not. We will have a much clearer idea after the application period and before farmers get going. We'll have a better idea of how much supply we will have generated. The reason for that is not knowing which farmers have, will meet the requirements of the program, being able to produce the documentation that the legislature has required. And so while we know the total eligible pool of existing hemp farmers who participated in the program over the last couple of years through Ag and Markets, we don't know who has actually kept track of the materials that are required to be submitted. We don't know how much land they have to grow on. And so we will know soon after these applications come in exactly how much supply these farmers will be able to produce, but not really until then. What I will add, and I'm sure it'll be a follow-up question, is, we do, through some revision, we have a kind of a ballpark idea of folks who actually have met the basic eligibility requirements of having grown 2 of the last 4 years. And so, we're anticipating between 150 and 200 farmers or so on a conservative basis of those who have actually grown and participated in the program and remained in compliance.
All right. And seeing no more hands up, I think we will conclude today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Oh, we have one more. We'll take it, and then we will conclude. We'll call on Joe Mahoney. Any second. Joe, I think you have to unmute yourself.
All right, Joe, we're having some trouble.
Oh, there we go, Joe.
There you go. Can we
Hello.
hear you, Joe?
Hi,
Yeah.
Chris.
Yep.
So were these regulations, well, draft regulations, right? They haven't been actually promulgated. You have to have a comment period.
Yep.
But you've been speaking as if these are going to take effect. The comment period hasn't even begun yet. Also, they would be potentially subject to court review if people want to challenge them. I don't know if they would be subject to, to an, I guess, it's a state court review. And it's not the fact that you are allowing other, or people in this category to get the jump on things, but the fact that you are telling other entities you have to wait. And that's where the challenge could come. So have you had this vetted by lawyers who looked at the legality of this approach? And are you confident that they would withstand court scrutiny?
Well, I mean, we're guided, and we have a significant and robust legal team here at the Office of Cannabis Management, and we're guided by the existing law that passed almost a year ago today and was signed into law last year that tells us and directs the activities of this office. And so the strategies that we are advancing are ones that are guided by and informed by the law as it stands already. And so, we're not, we believe that the actions that we're taking are fully in line with the law as it's been written and in line with the spirit and the intent of the cannabis law.
All right. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us today. Have a wonderful afternoon.